Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today's video is going to be my eyeshadow palette collection video. Are you ready? I am. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This is my eyeshadow palette collection that I do every year as part of Eyeshadow Palette Month. We're nearing the end, but yes, I have quite a few eyeshadow palettes, and before we get into this kind of video, I always need to leave a bit of a disclaimer. So here we go. Yes, I have a lot of eyeshadow palettes, but it's been my one true love. This video is going to include some of the things that are decluttered essentially, but that I still have in my home for either YouTube reasons or because makeup memory box reasons, really. So that's why there's a little bit more here than when I usually do my declutters. For instance, I'm showing you all of my Urban Decay palettes where I only really keep 2 of them in my active makeup collection and the rest counts as decluttered because I never use them anymore, but I cannot get rid of that. So just know that there's a bit of a mixed bag here. I've been doing this kind of thing for such a long time, and eyeshadow, powder shadow doesn't go bad as quickly as some people would like you to think. All of it is still fine. There's no mold. It doesn't smell weird. It doesn't perform badly. It's just really still good to go. And I always keep my makeup in a dry, dark place, and I feel that that has really helped with the longevity of the makeup in terms of over time and it not expiring super quickly. I think I have over 250 here. I didn't count them in advance. I'm terribly sorry. So yeah, that by no means feel you need to have this much. I definitely feel that by now this eyeshadow palette collection video is also an overview of my makeup journey and where I come from and what I like and where I've been, and I think that that's a great way as well. So without further ado, let me just get into this video. If you are unfamiliar with the channel, let me introduce myself really quickly. I'm Maaike. I have fair skin with a cultural neutral undertone and I live in the Netherlands. I've been reviewing makeup for more than a decade. I love eyeshadow palettes, Essence and Catrice, and getting the use out of my makeup. So that definitely also goes into this video. So I would like to consider subscribing and coming back for more and clicking that subscribe button down below. First up is Pat McGrath. Let me show you my motherships and all the 4 pans that I have. As you can see, I've got more of the quads than I do the motherships because I tend to prefer the color stories of those, and I have decluttered some of my motherships in the past, so this is fewer than I had last year. So first up is the, this is the Moonlit Seduction. This is the last one I bought, and this is my favorite one in terms of like recent color stories that were released. We get some rosy tones in here, but it's not overly warm, and I bought this to replace the Divine Rose 1, which I thought was far too warm toned. Then we have Utopian Dream. This is what she looks like, and I kept this one over the Divine Rose 2, which I gave to my neighbors because I think they can get a lot more use out of it than I do. This is just a bit lighter and better for my skin tone. Subliminal is my favorite mothership. You all know this. I put this very high up in my cool tone ranking. I love these shades. These shades are really lovely. I love these like the taupiness we get, and this like dirty lilac shade is quite possibly my favorite shade in the entire palette. I have 2 of the Blitz Astral quads. This was the first stuff I tried from Pat McGrath and wasn't super impressed. I have found that I really like the Pat McGrath formula, but the color stories is where it sometimes goes wrong for me. So I have Nocturnal Nirvana and Ritualistic Rose. So here is Nocturnal Nirvana, and this is Ritualistic Rose. And then these are some of the quads that I got a little bit later. I have 1 full collection, and then I have the Voyeuristic Vixen, which is this one over here, which is quite possibly my favorite quad from the line, because this is one look in a palette which the other ones aren't that I just showed you, and I just love some of these shades. And these are the other 3 quads. These came in the same collection. This is Interstellar Icon, this is Risque Rose, and this is Flor Fantasia. This is my Melt collection. As you can see, I've got quite a few of them because I love Melt's formula. The Myrte is of course notorious. I'm not sure if you can still get it, but they brought it back again this year. This blue shimmer is life. Gemini 1 and Gemini 2. I like these, but I think they nicely complement each other as well. And I've said this a lot about Melt palettes, is that I feel that if you have a couple of them, they sort of work like a train and they kind of like mix and match quite well together. The Mary Jane and the Millennial Pinks, not everyone's favorite, but this has the flaky melt shimmer formula that I don't mind working with. And the Millennial Pinks is just incredibly pretty. If you have a fair skin tone, these pinks work really well on me. They don't make me look sickly, and you get these really nice bluish grays towards the end. And then I just have some of the smaller palettes and an odd one out here. The Smoke Sessions I like as to give more shimmers to the Melt Gemini. The Blueprint actually looks like this. I still have the box. And it's the blues with the warm tone browns. And then the She's in Parties is quite possibly one of my favorite color stories by Melt. This is, like, if you like your warmer mauve tones, this is stunning, but since they made it a palette and they added these lighter shades, it works even better for me and my fair skin. And finally, the Beetlejuice Waiting Room palette. This is stunning as well. You get those grays with the reds. The next brand I want to show you is Natascha Denona. Now, when I open these up, these have all been rearranged, so none of these have the original color stories, and also the gold has been reorganized just a touch. What is a bit more difficult to reorganize, which is why I haven't done that, is the minis. So this is the Mini Love, which I like for that romantic sort of moment. The Mini Zendo, which I didn't think was going to work for me because it would be too warm toned, but I do like this. And then we have the Mini Retro, which is my favorite of the three. The gold then, this is what mine looks like. I actually took out the gold shade in the middle and took a shade from the Lilas palette. I took some of the shades from the Lila out and put them in my singles collection, but the palette is actually gone. I no longer have that, but yeah, these are the shades I like, and I still like the gold, which is why I didn't buy the new Yucca palette, because I think it's too similar to this. And then here's what I ended up doing with all 4 of my Natascha Denona eyeshadow palettes. I have just found that as much as I love the formula of Natascha Denona shadows, the color stories just aren't it for me, and because these have removable pans, I just decided to take all of the shades out and create 4 new palettes. So I told you we will be talking about things that I don't necessarily count as being part of my collection anymore. And Urban Decay, most of the things that are in this bin are no longer in my active makeup collection. But because Urban Decay was such a big part of my makeup journey, I've kept everything over the years, save for one palette that I did declutter years ago. And now I kind of regret that, but oh well. But yeah, I still have everything that I've ever owned by them. My Naked 2 was rearranged. I still have backups of the actual Naked 2 and 3. Those are the shades that are now in here. And I just created my perfect cool tone color story. And then the other Naked palette that I still have in my actual makeup collection is the Naked Honey. Because out of all of them, I think like a mustardy yellow kind of color story just really works for me. So I really like this one. And then everything else in this bin has been decluttered. So I have the 3 mini palettes, Naked 1, Naked 2, and Naked 3 Mini. The Mini 3 is one of the final things I bought from the brand before they were no longer sold in my country. So I like having these. I used to use the Naked Basics 2 all the time for like a quick matte eye, but I have other things that I like for that now. Who remembers this? The Deluxe Shadow Box. Like original colors from the brand. Ultimate Basics, which was their all matte palette with the Born to Run. I think for a lot of people this was always their favorite Urban Decay palette, it seemed. It was never my favorite because it reminded me too much of some of the Vice palettes. This was the Vice 4, Vice 3. See, this is Born to Run, but this is cooler toned with Vice 2, Vice 1. Heavy Metals with the mirror in between. I'm gonna flash you, I'm sure, but that's that one right there. The jewelry box they did for their 15th anniversary. I think they're coming close to their 25th anniversary already. The grungy sister to the electric, the After Dark. The Rainbow palette, my first ever rainbow palette, the Full Spectrum. The Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass, which has some really stunning shades in. The Back Talk with the mirror in the middle that pops out as a magnet. And then everything else here are Naked palettes. Naked Wild West, Naked Heat, really nice warm tones, but I have warm tones I just like better from other brands. The Smoky I went back to all the time for Christmas, especially these shades here I love. And the last Naked palette I bought was the Naked Cyber. This was a lot more successful for me than most people, but I just found it a touch too warm toned. Naked Reloaded, Original Naked, and then Naked Cherry, and the Naked Ultraviolet. Let's talk about something affordable next. This is Essence and Catrice. I don't keep a lot of my Essence palettes that are released in like regular collections because I'm never a big fan of the quality, or I just find their color stories I don't go back to. Just because I loved the idea of these little 6 pans so much, they got to stay, but I no longer have them in my active collection. So the Dancing Green, I have other green palettes that I like better, and also the Mauve It Mauve It. Really pretty, but I've always wished that gray was a deep purple rather than a gray. The Silver Glitter Show from Essence this is what I hold all Essence eyeshadow to when I try new Essence. This is the best thing they ever did. It was part of a limited edition collection. It's got really fun glittery packaging that actually moves around. So as we're talking, I haven't tried these yet. However, by the time you are watching this video, I will have tried the new Catrice products, and that video should have gone up yesterday, so you can find it very easily on my channel. So there's a new Wow in a Box. That's what these little 5 pans are now called. This is Peach Perfect, so it's very peachy. We have the Cozy Earth. I did declutter the other 4 that I tried last year when these first launched, and they've just come out with a new colorway with some more greens and some warm tone neutrals. My very favorite, the Fall in Colors. This I didn't have yet when I showed you my eyeshadow palette collection last year, because this was a limited edition fall last year, and I absolutely adore it. This palette was like 15 euros at the drugstore, and it performs like a Huda Beauty palette. That's how good the quality is. And then let's talk about the 5 in a box. So now they're called Wow in a Box, but this is all of them that have been released. There were 8. This is the last one they did, and it is my favorite. This is Diamond Lavender Look. These are only like $3.99. And then these are the ones we got earlier. This is the Elegant Cocky Look, Vivid Burgundy, Smoky Blue Look, Modern Smoky Look, Warm Spice Look, Soft Rose Look, and Golden Nude Look. Of these 2 are the ones that are living in my current makeup collection. And then these ones I like, but they're either not my color story or the quality wasn't the best. So these 2, the burgundy and the blue, don't have the same quality as some of the other palettes. I'm not bothering putting these Pro Slim palettes in any order. They didn't come out with a new one of this line. One of my favorites is the Mint, Hint of Mint, and the Vintage Soul. I just did a ranking of these in August, so if you want to see a full overview of these, you can. So Blushing Ocean is really nice. Then another really good one is the Next Gen Nude. Desert Romance is really pretty, but not my color story. Natural Spirit I also like. This is far more cocky than the 5 in a box one. Neon Earth has some really lovely warm tones in it. The 2 from this line that didn't have the same quality as the rest of them are the Lavender Breeze and the Peach Origin. So this is the Essence and Catrice stuff that was limited edition in collaboration with Disney. I kept 1 palette of each collection from the brands. I've got a couple of the Ursula ones, because Ursula is my gal. This is the Cruella palette by Catrice from the same collection. Lady palette was my favorite from the Catrice ones that came in this line. Very warm toned, but it's this like orangey, fiery sort of goodness. I think it came with the Dumbo actually. So this was the one I kept from Essence. Because this color story just really calls my name. Then we have the Jasmine, and then the Ursula palette came with that one. And then Essence did a separate princess collection. This was one of the first things they came out with, and the Ariel palette was my favorite. This is a great bluish green palette with some pops of all of the different characters that we get in the movie. And the Belle palette is one that I like best from this Disney princess collection that Catrice did. In 2023, I've set myself the task to try some more Asian brands. So some of these you have seen before, but a lot of these I only tried this past summer. So Florasis was kind enough to send me some PR. So this eyeshadow palette I haven't tried yet on my eyes, but it's swatched beautifully. And this is going to be on the to try pile for September. And also Zishi sent me this beautiful box last year. I tried this, it's really nice quality. And these are all of my K-Beauty palettes. The Rêve de Paris by Moonshot is really lovely, but I did declutter this earlier the year. But now that I've tried some more, I've realized how good the quality of this actually is. So if I were to declutter again today, I would actually keep this. There we go. I finally got to try one of the Gaja Bento boxes. Really like the quality of this, but color story wise, none of the other ones appeal to me. This is Rosewater. And these are the shades. Another one I've shown you before is the Peach Sea Falling in Pink eyeshadow palette. These 2 by Clio I've shown you before as well. This is Walking on the Cozy Alley and Picnic by the Sunset. If you want very easy to use, no fuss eyeshadow. then K Beauty is where it's at. Clio is one of my favorites, and they actually now do some things with some more contrast. This is the Over the Path. The Peri Pera Fallen Acorn is really pretty as well. One of my favorites that I tried all year from this entire lineup was the Autumn Closet by Etude. This color story is just everything to me. This is my favorite shimmer in the palette. Something that wasn't my favorite was the Bibia Tea House in Meringue. This is a good, I mean, it's decent quality. It's just, with just 8 shades, there's just too much here that's superfluous. I felt similarly about the Wake Make. Again, really good formula, but this palette is weirdly heavy. Some of these shimmers are very chunky. They're more like pressed glitters than anything else. And some of the mattes are too samey. And my favorite brand, if you were to try K Beauty, I would recommend either Clio or Romand. This is part of a special collection, so I'm not sure if this is still available, but it's Dreamy Lilac Garden, and this is Peony Nude Garden. And then some Holika and 3CE. You can definitely tell that these brands are trying to do something similarly. This is 3CE's Plot Twist, Neat Knit, and Button Up. This is the remainder of sort of like drugstore priced eyeshadow palettes, you could say. So first up is the NYX Ultimate Utopia. I bought this for a video because I did a full face of NYX. When I last went to Germany, I bought the Revol Hearts Me Out of Space palette, and this color story just appealed to me. Then I was sent some PR by Alter Ego. So this is again still on the try pile. This is also going to be tried out in September. So they sent me their Coastal palette. This is a dupe for the Rose Quartz from Huda Beauty. Same thing with their Midsummer. This is a dupe for the ABH Nouveau. And then the Goddess, which is a dupe for the Natascha Denona Gold. So I've just pulled out all of my BH Cosmetics stuff, and I'm so sad that this brand is so difficult to now find, especially some of the things that I have and that I love, you just can't get anymore. These Sweet Shop palettes, like in terms of like a blue-green palette, the Bubblegum and the Pistachio have just always been some of my favorites. There you go. My favorite, the Love in London. I can't stop raving about this thing. I still rate this very highly till this day. And because of that, I actually pulled these out of my declutter pile. I was like, I don't want to see these go because the Passion in Paris, I mean, in terms of like a cooler toned purple color story, it's lovely. I just didn't like the berries, but I can ignore that bottom row. And then the Blueberry Muffin, again, not a full blue palette that I wanted it to be, but some really stunning shades. I could never live without these shimmers. Beauty Bay, Book of Magic. I don't love the Beauty Bay formula all that much, but I do really enjoy this color story, which is why I've kept it. Another brand I'm super impressed with is e.l.f. I didn't love the bite size, but the Earth and Ocean is a long-standing favorite. I really enjoy the Celestial Winter that they released as a limited edition for Christmas. It's got a duochrome. There, boom. This is like 10 euros, something like that. They do some in their regular line now, and one of them has a very similar color story, but you don't get this shade. This is a Kiko eyeshadow palette. It was a limited edition for Christmas last year. I keep one because I want to have one so I can always compare it to things, but I actually prefer Kiko single shadows over palettes. Makeup memory box time. Who remembers sleek eyeshadow palettes? This was my favorite, the Au Naturel. This I've had for such a long time. And then a palette that I would declutter if this were a declutter. It's the Makeup Revolution Zodiac Air palette. This just wasn't great quality. And everything else is Colourpop, but you should also know that save for the things I haven't tried, this is on the to try pile for September, none of these color stories are still the way they were when I got the palettes, because I reorganized pretty much all of my Colourpop. So these are the 5 palettes that I haven't reviewed yet, so these I haven't messed with yet in terms of reorganization. The Off Melrose had been on my wish list for such a long time. The Pretty Please was recommended to me by so many of you, so I can't wait to try it. The Petals on Point is quite possibly what I wanted the Natascha Denona Retro Glam to actually be. The Lavish, not a lot of people seem to like, but maybe with my fair skin I might like it, who knows? And then the Deja Brew, which in my brain is like Going Coconuts, or quite possibly a little similar to That's Taupe, but like a lighter version. We'll see. I no longer have the Going Coconuts. That's no longer in my collection. But yeah, That's Taupe I never changed. The other two I've never changed are the Troublemaker and the Baroque. So the Baroque is a lovely grungy cool tone color story. And then the Troublemaker is quite new to me. I only tried it this year and I really loved it. All of these ones though are no longer in its original color story. So the Ballet, I took 2 or 3 shades out and replaced it. The Flutterby has all of the purples that I liked from all of the purple tone palettes I had. Then the Menage a Moi is like all of the mauve tones together with the Making Mauves. I made like a 9-pan with like warmer tones, and then the Menage a Moi has the more neutrally ones. The Dream Street has all of the teals from the High Tide plus the 3 tealy shades from the Dream Street. And then the High Tide is the Aha Honey. This is actually no longer Colourpop, it's actually Juvia's Place. This is the Off Quartz and the original shades that came from this Tinkerbell palette. This has some greens in, but I definitely replaced some of the brown tones that were in here to make it more green toned. Then we have the Cherry Crush. This is all the red tones that I still have. Then the Mint to Be is, I believe I put in some of the Going Coconuts in here. And then the Smoke Show, now called Blowing Smoke. And finally, the Blush Crush has all of my Stone Cold Fox shades in that I used to own. Sydney Grace and Too Faced. Now Too Faced, like many of my other older palettes, I have rearranged or decluttered, save for the white chocolate bar. This one is intact because it's always been my favorite chocolate bar. Here is that, I believe it's called Sugar Raisin or something like that. Favorite shade in this palette. And right here we have all of the shades from the Gingerbread Spice, the Sweet Peach, and the original chocolate bar that I liked. And then I decluttered the semi-sweet and the chocolate bonbons. Then the Sweet Indulgence, this was sent to me by a subscriber. This is Sydney Grace, and this is a stunning palette. This teal is just gorgeous. And then these are the Temptalia collab. I believe they've now discontinued these. So this is the Quintessence, On the Horizon, and Radiant Reflection. These are all of the Huda Beauty palettes I have. A warm tone color story that I still very much enjoy is the Desert Dusk. That is such a stunning shade. Rose Quartz is one of my all-time favorite palettes. This still is ranked very highly in my makeup collection. Mercury Retrograde is what I feel like a very good alternative for the white chocolate bar if you missed out on it. I have 2 from the Nude line when these were launched, the Nude Rich and the Nude Light. Then we have the Lilac Pastels, which a lot of people didn't like. The only reason I don't love this is because of those like peachy tones. I have the Chocolate Brown, and then the Wild Jaguar was the only one from that Animal line that I actually bought. Emerald Obsessions is the only one from these original line that I've actually kept. And then I have the entire Haze collection. The Sand Haze, Khaki, Purple Haze. I also have a bunch of indie brands, but I'm sort of mixing things up as we go along. I have Meesha Lou Cosmetics down here. This brand I think has gone defunct because there's nothing listed on their website anymore. And it was always a bit of a dodgy website, but I own the Fawn, and the Witchcraft palette. And both of these are really lovely. And that is Water Reflections. And I've joined up the Nomad palettes in this section. So Nomad is a brand where I feel the formula is a bit thinner than most indie brands, which is why I think they're great for beginners. But the Land of Fire and Ice, I've always really enjoyed. I love the inside of this. It's like the inside of a volcano. Similarly here with the Haunted Europe, for these larger palettes, I've kept the boxes because they're such a nice addition, I feel, to the original palette. They are now doing a new Halloween themed color story, but this one they discontinued last year, and I'm so glad I have it. This is my favorite Nomad palette. Then the Valentine's Day palette, they released the Verona Amore e Morte, and this is a stunning palette. We have those pinky tones on one side and then those bluish cool tones on the other side. And last but not least, you need to see the full effect with the box if you get this palette, which is why I've kept the box. But this is the Monteverdi Cloud Forest palette, and this is the bright one. I won this in a giveaway. One of you guys actually nominated me, and I was very honored to have that nomination. And then I got this in, I think last fall, they sent this to me. It's a really nice, bright, colorful color story. It's got a lot of greens, which is why I like it. This next spread are all brands where I just have one palette of that brand and I don't have anything else. Some of these again are from my makeup memory box because I no longer own any of my The Balm palettes, save for the Nude Tude. I wanted to keep one, so I saved this one because it was the first one I ever bought. KVD Beauty, the, oh, what's this called again? The Metamorphosis eyeshadow palette. Always kept this in a makeup memory box. It's not something I reach for, but you got cool tones, neutrals, and warm tones all in one palette. A palette with a lot of hype. I don't think I had this in last year, but the Cosmic Brushes Serenity palette. And this is another great color story. It's blues, greens, and purples. Lunar Beauty Eternal Eclipse. Such a good color story. It's my only Lunar Beauty palette. I just love blues and teals. You guys know that about me. So, or blues and taupes, that's what I should say, not blues and teals. My only Ace Beauty palette, the Oceanic Blue Greens. Love this one. Really good color story. And this is still the old Ace Beauty formula. I've never tried their newer one. The Vive Cosmetics 90s palette I bought last fall? Winter? Something like that. I've tried it this year. Really good cool tone color story. I really enjoy it, but all these shades pull darker on me than they look in the pan, and the shimmers are a little bit weak. LH Cosmetics Daybreak, a palette that swatches terribly but looks stunning once on the lid. I'm going to be swatching this one for you. I've just tried this. This is just up in my review video that I posted the other day. But this is it's a duochrome. It looks like a gray in the pan, but it's not. This is another palette that is not great in a swatch, but it's beautiful on the lids if you use brushes, the Sugar Pill Fun Size. It's a nice, really colorful rainbow palette with some pastels and neons and some brighter things. LA Splash Classic Horror. I show you this every year. I don't use this enough, but just the packaging alone, I just like it for that. Maybe this should go into a makeup memories box eventually, but yeah, this is just another matte rainbow color story. Glaminatrix Nocturnal. Last year, I also had the Nearly Natural, but I decluttered that already and just kept the shades I liked. I just like this color story a lot better than I did that. I wish though that the mattes and the shimmers were better together. This is Patrick Ta's Major Dimension. This is a good palette, it really is. I just don't love the shimmer formula in here, and also those creams that we get on this side didn't really work for me. They were far too dark. The mattes are stunning. Violet Voss Sugar Crystals. I keep this to have some shimmer options for some of my more rainbow color stories. A spread of brands of palettes where I have two of each. So I've got two by September Rose, the Slush one. This has been one of my favorite rainbow color stories for years because it's so light. And then the Slush 2 is just a really nice addition to that, but it's more rainbow than the Slush is, I feel. I have two Sigma palettes. I have the Nomad and the Enchanted. I've always said how I really like sort of like this half of the palette, but this like first half, I'm not a huge fan of. Finally, Blend Bunny, the Dollhouse, and the Surge. I like these palettes. A lot of people think that because these aren't my favorite, that I don't rate this formula. I think it's good formula eyeshadow. It is. It's just that I didn't need that entire row of darkness that you get, and I just wanted more shimmers. And as some of you may be wondering, Micah, where have all your ABH palettes gone? Well, I reorganized some, and now I've combined, I think, 6 ABH palettes into these two, and that's it. The Soft Glam, we all know what it looks like. This ended up just being one of my favorite ABH palettes, so I've kept it the way it's been. The Nouveau I really like, but I feel that the two palettes that we got after this are just renditions of this and not wholly unique, but I do really enjoy that color story. And then the Subculture is one I've always liked a lot. So that one I haven't changed, and I've always really enjoyed the Carly Bible. Yeah, the Sultry and the Jackie Aina is now Sultry, Jackie Aina, Modern Renaissance, Prism, Norvina, and Riviera, all combined. Next up, some more indie brands and a couple of one-offs again. The What's Up Beauty Geodes palette was sent to me in PR earlier in the year, and this is the What's Up Beauty palette that I think is going to last a little bit longer in my collection because these shades are right up my street. And then we have some Game Beauty palettes. I have the Fantasy and the Adventure, and these are both in a Makeup Memories box. And then the Victory palette is actually that warm toned with a pop of teal color story. I have some Nabla in this layout. We have Soul Blooming here. So sad this is discontinued because it's still so pretty for spring. Then I have all of these cutie palettes over here. This is a Wild Berry. The Midnight is in my active makeup collection. The Metropolitan was never my favorite, but that shade in the bottom is just life. Platinum Cutie, I've always said that this is a great cool tone color story if you don't love cool tones. Cutie Coral is quite possibly one of the more unique color stories in my collection. And the Nude, but these stand out for me, is the Analog. The Analog is my warm toned color story of choice. So there we have the Analog. Aether Beauty, sad to see them go. The Rose Quartz is really pretty, very shiny, but the Moonlight Crystal ended up being my favorite. It's like that blue with a gold. Then we have Unique's Beauty Bubble Time. I had 2 more of these, but I decluttered them because this was just my favorite of the 3 with the blues and the greens. Makeup by Lisa's Raven's Castle. I keep raving about this and how much I like it. Really incredible quality. One of my favorite eyeshadow brands at the minute, and I can't wait to get my hands on the Fighter palette, the Druid, and the Rogue from Fantasy Cosmetica. These color stories are great. So they always do some really good shimmers in their palettes. So stunning and really high quality eyeshadow. Viseart is next up. As you can see, I have quite the Viseart collection. This is one of my favorite brands for eyeshadow at the minute, so that's why I have a lot. So let me start here with the Lavande. I kind of bought this to get more purple out of the Violette Étendue. When they launched this new collection last Christmas, I knew I had to get the Violetta. It's so stunning. Oh, look at that. And then the Lilas and Lila Deux. And then you can see sort of the difference. So the original Lilas is a little bit more taupe, and I feel that this is a bit more mauve. There you go. There's a reason why these are my favorite shades. I have 2 of the actual Petite Pro line. I have the Midsummer, and my first ever Viseart palette in this like more affordable size, you could say, is the Petite Pro 3. And then I have what I like to think of as the travel series. I'm not sure if there's any more of these, but it all started with the Paris Étoile, and they have the like skyline of the city they represent on the back. Really nice smoky cool tone color story with a pop of teal, a pop of purple, some grays, some stunning taupey shades. And then they came out with the London and the San Francisco last fall. Again, the same stunning packaging. The London looks like this, and I feel similarly about the San Francisco. The San Francisco is essentially that Victory palette, warm tones with a pop of teal. It's got a stunning taupe, and the only shade in here I didn't like eventually when I tried it was the orange, but everything else works just fine. I felt a little bit disappointed when I tried the Petite Cool Mattes, mainly because it pulled too gray toned on me. So the purples, the teals, all pulled gray. I didn't really see much of a difference. And then my 2 favorites, the Cashmere and the Violette Étendue. This, my favorite purple palette of all time. And the Cashmere, my favorite neutral palette of all time. We are rounding out this sort of mini palette section of this eyeshadow palette collection. So I've got 2 of the Fenty Snap Shadows still, the Cool Neutrals and the Smoky palette. And these I bought to go together. This may sound controversial, but you'll see that I don't have any of my Charlotte Tilbury color stories anymore. And that's because I feel that this H&M quad does exactly what I want those Charlotte Tilbury things to do, only at a fraction of the price point. I also really enjoy the M Cosmetics Divine Skies in the shade Rodin. This is a little bit more warm toned than I had expected, but it's got some really cool shades. I now have 2 of the Glossier. I just got one when I was in London. This is the one I bought new. This is Mist, and I already owned Jute. This one I bought last year. Love the formula of this. You get a matte, a satin, and a metallic. Something that was sent to me in PR by Victoria Beckham Beauty. This is the Smoky Eye Brick in the shade Tuxedo. Formula on this is absolutely magnificent. I finally got to try some Lisa Eldridge eyeshadow this year. This is in the shade Vega. I love this thing to pieces. Really great formula. I love how we get only 6 shades, but everything just goes together. We get some textures to play with. Love it, and a really good true cool tone color story without it being gray. Sigil inspired by Tammy Tenuka's Perky Lavender Chinchilla. It's always a mouthful to call this one out. I love this, but I feel like my Raven's Castle by Makeup by Lisa does a very similar thing to this. Dior. I have some old bits, not necessarily still in my active makeup collection, and some newer bits. I think this is one of the oldest things I have. This is a Khaki Tone 3 Smoky Khaki. This one is in my Makeup Memories box. This is Graphic Lights. I have 2 more limited editions. I have House of Dreams and Black Knight. Both of them were part of Christmas collections in recent years. And now I have all the Dior eyeshadow I need. I've got the smoky things and I've got something very neutral and basic. This is all of my Zoeva eyeshadow. I still have a lot of the older ones that were discontinued. They now do this and they do this one. So let me talk about the new stuff first. This is Beautiful Bright Eyes. This is Glorious Golden Eyes and Emerald Green Eyes. This is the green toned one. This is the golden toned one. And this is very neutral and basic. I still have my Precious palette. I almost decluttered it this year, and it's one of those palettes I just had to salvage. It's so good. It's so good. This one you can also still get. This is the Together We Grow. This one is a perfect neutral tone palette, if that ever existed. None of these you can still get, so I do apologize. I'll go through them quickly. The Melody is a beautiful cool tone color story with lots of dimensional shimmers. I've always rated Zoeva for doing duochromes, way before duochromes were ever even a thing. The Premier IC, which has your grungy tones, but then also some brighter pops, and this is very nice for your jewel tone moment. The Heritage, which is like your Flapper Girl Berry palette from the 20s. The On Taupe, which I still till this day think they should never have discontinued. Eclectic Eyes, which is again your jewel tones with some neutrals, really stunning. These are so soft, smooth, buttery. I mean... And then we have what I like to call their chocolate bar series. The Cocoa Blend definitely had its moment on YouTube back in 2016. This is the cool toned version of the Naked Honey. It's got yellows and then some mustardy shades, but with cool tone neutrals. The Caramel Melange, one of my favorite warm tone palettes of all time. And then the Spice of Life. Again, a little bit more warm toned, but again, a little bit more depth as well. But that's one of my all-time favorite eyeshadows ever made. Next up, again, some brands where I only have like 2 or 3 palettes. These are brand new to me. They are the MUA Enchantment and Andromeda Skies palettes. Picked these up when I was in London a few weeks ago. Really pretty cool tone color stories from the drugstore. And they were like £3.99 each. This is a bit more smoky. These feel so buttery smooth, and for just $3.99, I mean... Can we have a minute? I still have 2 of my Lorac palettes, the Lorac Pro 3. I will never declutter because this is just going to be one of my favorite neutral color stories of all time. I haven't reached for it in a while. The 4 I also like because it's got that rosy mauve tone moment. So these 2 I've kept around. And then these are my Adept palettes. So I have a few of those. The Plain Jane Remastered I really enjoyed. Same goes for the Ninhydrin. I really love this one as well, but this is more my color story than the Plain Jane, so this is my favorite one by them. And then I thought I was going to love the Minka, but this color story is as beautiful as it is. The shimmers are so thick and difficult to pick up with a brush that I didn't like it as much as the other ones, but color story wise, this is definitely even more up my street. A nice little bin with 2, well, technically 3 brands, Juvia's Place and Kaleidos. So this is what's left of my Juvia's Place collection. At some point in time, I had everything they had. The Saharan 2 is one of my favorite all-time warm tone color stories with a pop of blue. So liking that. The Tribe. You're gonna have to pry this out of my cold dead hands. This is exactly up my street. The Dews with some more pastel shades and some cool tones. Love that. The Festival for how unique it is, and it looks very crazy, but it's very wearable, actually. The Nomad, one of my favorite fall tone color stories. The Saharan, where I did change one of the shades out. I popped that cranberry shade in. And then I have a couple of the Six Pans. The Taupes, the Berries, the Violets, and the Mauves. And this is Kaleidos. Yes, I've seen the announcement for the new 4 pans, and I definitely want to get it because I think those new ones are going to be bridging the gap between the more neutrally things from the Smoky Nostalgia and then these purpley things from the later collection we got. But let's kick things off here. The Angelica Nukvist collab, the Club Nebula. One of the best collab palettes ever made, I think. I don't buy a lot of collab palettes, but this one takes the cake every time. And then these Futurism palettes, some of them have been rearranged. I decluttered the VR Neons, but I did put some of the shades into these other things. And this is the Beauty Bay, what was it called again? Ooh, Wild Something palette. And I just kept the 6 shades and repressed them in here, which I think still goes with this packaging. So that's why I put them in there. The Cyber Bronze has the pink from the VR Neons. And I think one of the black shades, yeah, this black is from the Futurism one, from the Sci-Fi Greens in the Astro Pink. This is my favorite one of the entire first lineup, the Electro Turquoise. I've always liked the Sashimi City, and I've kept this over a Colourpop shade. This is that neutral palette that I love. And then this Lilac-y number, which is exactly up my street. So the Glowing Iris and the Flowing Haze, love both of these. Cold Brew and the Black Jasmine. A nice little spread of some indie brands again, where I have like 4 or 5 palettes of each. Let me start off with Strobe, because they're up here. The Creepy Cute. Lovely. But yeah, they do some really lovely color stories, and I love their matte formula. Really stunning shimmers, but their color stories don't always come together for me. My favorite color story by them is the Arcana. The Moonfall has some of the most amazing shimmers on the planet, but I don't feel that the undertones in this palette go together very well. And I feel similarly about the It's Freakin' Bats with Betty Bean. See what the quality is like, just a little bit. Very easy to work with eyeshadows, just stunning quality, but I don't always love the color stories they do. Menagerie up next. I still have one of their old palettes that says Makeup Monsters. That was their original name. This is the Dragon Child. Very pretty purples, that's why I keep it. Pastel Pup. The pastel palette of my life. I don't need any others. The Whale Song, which wasn't the blue-green palette that I wanted it to be, so I took some from the Violet Ink and put those shades in here actually, so this is not the original color story. And same thing with the Flight Club. I took some shades from that Violet Ink palette that I had and replaced some of the neutrals with more purples. And the Feral, one of my favorite colorful eyeshadow palettes ever. I've had it for years, but it still swatches and performs beautifully. And finally, Unearthly Cosmetics. My favorite being the Fall Magic. I hope desperately that they bring this back. It's your grungy neutral color story with some pops of color. You get a purple, you get that blue, you get some rosy things, you get some warmth, you get some neutrals. It does everything, and it's just 12 pans. I don't know how they do it. Look at that. Oh. We have the Lore, which I just love that packaging. Medusa, my gal. Love her. Really nice. Similar to the Festival from Juvia's Place, I feel that this looks a lot more unwearable than you might think at first. The orange and the yellow are actually quite good neutrals, so you can do neutral looks with this. You can rope in the green and the blue for a pop of color. You can do something pinky berry, and then you have the black for a liner. The Strawberry Milkshake, one of my favorite bright color stories in my entire collection, with those pinks and reds, and then some greens for contrast. But my two favorites, I think, are still the ones that I bought very early on. The packaging of both of these looks completely different by now. Fairy Frolic. Again, neutral but grungy, great fall palette, love that color story. And then the Serendipity palette, which is now called the Poison Apple, I believe. Persona, Lime Crime, and Oden's Eye. So let me start with Persona. I think the Identity palette is one of the best neutral toned color stories ever made. I'm so glad I was able to purchase this. This is lovely if you have brown eyes. Very stunning. Identity 2, also lovely, but I like it a little bit less, but it is a good jewel tone color story. Next up, Lime Crime. I just have a couple of them. This is the Chroma Prelude. It's like teals with some golds and some peaches. Very pretty. But my favorite is the Immortalis. It's the cool tone one with the taupes and the silver. Again, this is one of my favorite taupes in my entire makeup collection. So that's why we're swatching it for you. Venus 3 from Lime Crime. This is a bit like the Nabla Soul Blooming, very good for spring. Venus XL2, one of my favorite color stories of all time. I wish the Retro Glam was more like this. And the XL, my ultimate berry palette. And Oden's Eye. I have 6 Oden's Eye palettes. Some of them I like better than others. I think my favorite Oden's Eye palette is still the original Solomona. This has been discontinued, but this is so stunning. Such a perfect color story. Those warm tone neutrals with that pop of lavender. A stunning duochrome. And then this bronze taupe shade. My finger is still a bit green from the Menagerie shade, so I do apologize. Just for these two shades alone, I want to keep this palette around for the rest of my life. The Hella I've liked a lot. I like the quality of this, but I don't love the color story. The pinks felt a little bit random for me, and I felt that for a goddess that represents life and death, we get a lot of life, but we don't get that much death. The Norns is another really good one. This was re-released to have the new pan sizes, but this is still the old one. And then these, the one that I've tried last, I just put this in my review the other day. This is the Jewels and Gems, really stunning color story. I love the shades in this. I just wish the shimmers were better. I judge a palette by their shimmer quality, not the matte quality. And then I think two palettes that I was just a bit disappointed with when I tried them. The Christmas Eve and the Merry Christmas palettes. Stunning color stories, but this has some random warm tones in that I feel should have been in there. And there are some cool tones in this that I would have wanted in this. So I'm glad I have both because then I can mix and match it. Very interesting color stories for sure, but same thing as with the Jewels and Gem. I just wasn't a fan of the quality in here. I just wasn't. And the final spread I have for you is Tarte, Glamshop, and Glossgods. We're ending things on a high note because I love the formulas of these. So I just recently reviewed the Tartelette Energy for you. And I was just reminded again of how good Tarte eyeshadow quality is. The color stories aren't necessarily always what I want, but this has some really pretty shades in, and I really enjoy playing with it. But my favorite of the Tartelettes, if I recommend just one, it's still, till this day, the In Bloom. This. If you're a beginner in makeup, Tarte has the best formula. It's easy to blend, easy to work with, lovely formulas, and every palette has like a row of something that you can do something with. The Juicy I also quite enjoyed, but this was a bit too warm toned, this middle row. And then we have the Toasted in here as well. Very warm toned, but again, one of the few very warm toned palettes that I've kept around because I like it better than, for instance, Naked Heat. And I think this one you can still get, and Naked Heat has been discontinued. So if you want that orangey vibe, I would still recommend the Toasted. And then the High Tides and Good Times. That is what this one is called. Very random purchase. I don't use this enough. I'm gonna have to be very honest here. This should perhaps just go into a Makeup Memories box. I mean, we have the turtle and then the water moves. Is a complete surprise to me, but this is stunning. You have some warm tone neutrals, that pop of blue, and you have pressed glitters in here, and these pressed glitters are actually good. And then two of my current favorite eyeshadow brands. I'm just gonna give the title to these two. Glamshop, as you can see, I have 8 of their palettes, and I have 3 Glossgods. And I want to get more Glossgods because it's so good. If you haven't yet, you can still enter until Thursday in the giveaway and win this, the new neutrals. It's my current favorite neutral toned eyeshadow palette. You get some cool tones, some warm tones, some true neutrals, and everything here has a bit of a flip. So everything looks perhaps a little bit like peachy neutral, and then it catches the light. This one has green and purple running through it. This one has a green to it, and this is what, look at that. And you get different formulas and textures to play with. I rate this so highly. If you do want to enter to win, I will leave the link in the description box down below. The Dancing in the Sky is the all green shimmer palette, and I still want the color of rain, but it's currently sold out. So here we have the all green shimmer palette and the limited edition Smoke and Mirrors. And this is, I think, my favorite Glossgods palette actually, because it's cool tones. It's so stunning. Those heathery purple shades in the middle, oh, sublime. And Glamshop. I tried this one, and this one in August. So if you want to see the review, that video went up a couple of days ago. But the Cashmere is really good as well. Really good fair skin neutral toned eyeshadow palette. I'll swatch this one for you and this one as well. It has just one of the best shimmer formulas ever if you buy a Glamshop palette. Really stunning mattes as well. Very, very pretty, but they discontinue their palettes like there's no tomorrow. Fairy Perry, the old Periwinkle color story, purple color story. Sadly discontinued. I got this one on sale. It was about 12 euros. Blue tone color story, also discontinued, and this is my alternative for the BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop. I sort of go back and forth between those two for my perfect blue tone palette. And this matte blue. And this is what you get. The two green ones, I believe this is just called green in English. Stunning shimmers again. And then this is the newer one. So that hype we had with the greens, with the neutrals, with the Yucca palette from Natascha Denona. Nomad did a palette. The Stone and Rock from Oden's Eye that was launched together with the Jewels and Gem. All sort of fit this bill of like mustardy yellows with some browns and a green. I have this. I'm happy. And the good thing about Glamshop is actually they can buy a lot of it as single. So even if a palette is no longer available, You can just buy them as singles, and they do a lot of sales on their singles, and you can get them for €1.50 a pop. So here we have the, look at that. And that palette was 21 euros. But my two favorites, I still think, are the Coco Sanka and the Tsimna Mocha. This is currently listed on the website as sold out, which makes me hope that they bring it back, because I like this a little bit better than this. You'll see what I mean. This is a little bit darker. And both of them are great alternatives for something like the That's Taupe or the Deja Brew, if those are Colourpop palettes you were interested in. This, and let me do like this matte here. Like, here's that taupey thing. Sorry, my hands are super stained, so I hope you can still see. This is a little bit softer than the green palette, but because nothing is like super flaky, but look at that shine. And then here, like I'm swatching this with my ring finger, which is always a bad idea, but that's the matte formula. I mean, it's stunning. So those were all of the eyeshadow palettes in my current makeup collection. I really hope you enjoyed watching this again. I will be back next year with another eyeshadow palette collection video. I always declutter my eyeshadow palettes around March time, so that's when I will do like an update on what I currently have in my collection then. And I do regular eyeshadow palette related content, so hope you're here for that. Stay tuned for more eyeshadow palette related content in the future. And for now, I just hope you would like to thumbs up this video, subscribe to the channel, and then I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye!